Welcome back, everybody. We start the last session of the day. The topic is e-governance for smart cities. For this, we have our chairperson, Mr. Sunil Dubey, his senior advisor, Metropolis, Australia. May I request you to come up on the dais, please? Mr. Dubey is a senior advisor to Metropolis World Association, largest organization to represent cities over 1 million inhabitants globally. He represents Metropolis on the World Economic Forum's Advisory Board for Urban Development and Infrastructure. Well, I'll call upon the rest of the speakers. We have Mr. Jakub. Can I have you on the dais, please? He's a keynote speaker. And now I'll call upon the panelists, Dr. Shalini, Ms. Mateja, KV Narayanan, Sushovon Saha, Viraj Tyagi, and Mr. Bert Hendriks. Well, I'll call upon Kanta Mishra to come up on the dais. I'm sorry, ma'am, I was not aware of that. Thank you. And now, Mr. Dubey, I would request you to start the sessions and continue.
Good afternoon. I must say the efficiency how the name tag was changed probably gives this session a big tick to start with. So, welcome. First of all, I want to welcome all of you to coming to this session. And I also want to acknowledge the time and all the contributions with this panel. There's enormous knowledge in this panel. What it does to me to apply a very simple rule, in academia we thrive on less is more. What it means, if we want to follow any governance, the less is more is the most appropriate way to test the governance. The less government get involved, the more outcome is going to be visible. In that regard, having such a distinguished panel gives all of us an opportunity to test some of the hypotheses about governance and how this governance is different from e-governance and the values we bring by defining and changing from governance to e-governance. Less is more, I say this for two reasons. As we move and start to adopt the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030, and throughout the community of cities in this world, we begin on the path of new urban agenda, which defines the journey of cities, not only in India, but for the entire world. It's also important because cities are the centerpiece for a number of activities happening in the world today. Cities are focused not only for the economic prosperity, but largely how our planet would behave in the coming few years. So if we want to achieve the objectives of 2030 Sustainable Development Goals for the entire community of cities in the world, we need to focus how these cities are managed, led, and administered on a daily basis. That's where governance plays a very important role in our cities. Less is more is also very important for us because we do know there's not abundance of resources available to manage our cities. So we cannot keep on building our cities assuming that there's all the resources available to build our cities. And in that, governance is going to play a very important role. Less is more is also very important to understand that building more and more infrastructure is not going to solve a lot of our problems in our cities. In fact, if we look at the data and if we critically argue a very simple thing, about building bridges, roads, infrastructure to cater for the needs of cities in India only. By 2030, the amount of steel which is required only in India to build all this physical infrastructure is not available today in the entire world. So to think we can keep on building the physical infrastructure to cater for the need of cities is going to be very challenging, in that we need to look at the paradigm shift, that how we start to look at our cities and start to acknowledge that the traditional model of city building is not going to be enough for us. We need to re-evaluate the way we build cities, we need to re-evaluate the way we plan our cities, and most importantly, we have to look at it, what is the value proposition from our cities? This debate is going to play a fundamental part in establishment of the smart cities. The journey has started. In India, we begin to see some outcome from the smart cities, but we still need to see, we still need to test a lot of these hypotheses on the ground level. For us, it's going to be very important to also reach out and look at other cities in the world. What have they done? Metropolis is the largest organization of cities, over 1 million. It is one of the oldest association of cities in the world today. With the amount of knowledge, historical background about the cities, and the skill set, we begin to appreciate there's a strong connection for the reaching out of the cities. And when we say about reaching out, there's a very strong component of knowing what not to do. And that's probably one of the hardest things for the cities today to acknowledge and adopt. Number of things cities have done and failed has been a tremendous learning curve, has provided us with a tremendous learning curve in terms of knowledge, in terms of wastage of resources. But where we begin to appreciate that country like India, and where our cities sit today, may not have that opportunity to create or do those mistakes for the benefit or the future of this planet. And in that regard, we are very fortunate to hear some of the global experiences from this panel, primarily how the governance influence our cities, what is the key differences between traditional governance and e-governance. Is it just the word e brings a new notion, or has it got its own applications? And in doing so, I'm going to invite the guests, and I'm going to invite and ask them something specific to share it with us today. And that sharing is the fundamental contribution we bring as a knowledge from this session. The experts here would highlight some of the key challenges from their experiences, but most importantly, what are they doing and how well they are contributing in this journey of e-governance. So, to start with, I would like to put a very simple thing in front of you. Imagine a city which has got enormous wealth of resources. Historically, it thrived on the outcome of the petroleum resource, build up a city, a nation around it. But about 20 to 30 years ago, it also decided with the great visions that they are not going to rely on this resource alone. They are going to transform not only one city, but the entire nation to redefine what's going to contribute to their economy and how prosperity is going to become fundamental, not only based on the petroleum. It seems like an easy task, but when you have to implement and change and do the economic shift, it requires a lot of leadership It requires a lot of skill set which may not be available in your country, in your city, in your region, but most importantly, it requires a lot of global buy-in. In doing so, this place shifted his whole economy, moving from petrochemical to service-oriented, bringing a lot of international stakeholders to their cities and making almost 80% of their revenue based from the companies which are based in these cities. That is a big shift. No other place on this planet has managed to do this shift in less than 20 years' time. And it is our pleasure to invite someone who lives, breathes, and works in this city of Dubai, where they are working very closely with the government and with the private sectors in the city, working and evolving new models where the whole philosophy of Oracle has been, how do we take digitization, how do we take innovation, and how do we take the concepts of smart cities to make and simplify life for people, citizens, business people, people in transit who come only for a few days in Dubai, and what contribution cities like Dubai can make to smart cities or cities in general in India. It is our pleasure, and it is my special pleasure to invite Mr. Jakub Polec, who is in the digital transformation management for Oracle, and his valuable experience is very interesting for us to hear. Over to you.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to talk to you and to share my experience, an Oracle experience, on how e-governance and smart cities within worldwide context should look like, and what are the key initiatives to be done to make it more happen and more satisfying. First, let me put as I'm second time in my life in India, I'm not as experienced as you in your Digital India initiatives, but I can share my experience and my practical experience, what I'm doing in other region. I'm living in Dubai, as Chairman said, and I'm witnesses on daily basis what is smart city without legacy system, which is in Dubai. The first thing what is happening, it's a center for what it's a main point why we're doing the smart cities and what is the smart city definition. And I guess that every one of you have a different definition of a smart city. The common denominator for all of these things is a citizen, it's us. If you think about yourself, what you expect from the smart city you live in, it's a lot of the things. It could be a lot of different things, but one of the things which is the most important, and it's very much seen in Dubai, is a satisfaction of citizens from the life, from accessing the different government or city resources and allowing to do what we as a citizen, as a human being, want to do. So have a secure life, healthy life, have an education for our kids, have a lot of different pillars which are the most important for us. So if we talk about the smart city, we talk about how government and the governance of cities can deliver those things to us, not to anyone else, to us personally. And we expect that it should be done in a proper way. Then you can talk that the cities are changing. I remember that India is very unique because more than 60% of the people here are below the age of 35 years old. So in comparison to Europe, it's quite a young generation, population here, and it affects the acceptance of the different technologies. Because when we're talking smart, we think that it's like through IT technologies. When I was coming here through the booth here, you see in front of on the room, a lot of different companies. And every company here, every partner, every company saying, we are smart. What does it mean? They deliver some of the solutions. It could be, I saw like a pumps, I saw like a smart parking things, allowing us to do our things easier. Let me give you one of example what is a smart city and how you can govern this. It's a smart parking. You may imagine that from the different surveys analysis, typically in the mall, finding a place to park your car takes about 20 minutes just to find a slot. So if you can take your mobile and see in front of the mall that, and your mobile can show you how to get to the place which is free in 3 minutes, you're saving time. You're saving 15 to 17 minutes. And then if you multiply that hundreds or millions of citizens, it's a saving of time for us, giving us more time, more space for being with family, our kids. And this is a smart because at the end it's delivering the value. And we're badly looking for those values in our normal life. And you can see that all of these things can be delivered, a lot of these things can be delivered through the digital technologies, which is technology like IoT, Internet of Things, mobile, social, big data, those kind of things when Oracle is delivering on daily basis to millions of the customers. We are the first company which is growing the fastest in the cloud because in this digital world, all those things needs to be delivered in the cloud, provision as fast as possible. We call it business of change, deliver a lot of technologies as soon as possible to citizens in the smart cities to benefit out of this. Not within the year or two, within the 3 months. And this is when Oracle is built for. Coming back to the last point on the Dubai, we also discussed today on the happiness index. You know, the owner of Dubai and the owner of Emirates said that this is the city when he wants the city to be the most happiness city worldwide. But if you think about this, what does it mean? It means that he created a lot of initiatives. In fact, there are more than 100 different initiatives across all ministries and entities within the city to simplify the way how to operate with citizens to make our life easier. And this is a happiness at the end because we are happy we're doing what we want and we're expecting from the city to deliver what we want and how we want to live for our own life. So summarizing this, I would say that the governance of this, of the city, smart city, is coming through the technologies delivered by the IT vendors and telco vendors, allowing to deliver more value to the citizens and allowing to build more credibility in the city services. And so the last point on that is, repeat myself, but I tell that within Oracle we have something what is called Oracle Digital Platform. It's a set of different components, like a Lego blocks, from which you can create any service within the city. It could be in the health part, education, remote education. It could be in the smart parking, smart metering for the water pumps, all those things to allow more value delivered to the citizens and increase this happiness, not only in Dubai, but also in a lot of cities in India. Thank you very much.
This is something very profound. I mean, it's great to hear, Jakub, that how a city or a country like UAE is leading the path by having a special ministry for happiness, a minister, and how important role innovation, digitization, and systems are playing in this. So at the end of the day, we need to understand that all this work we need to do for something very tangible, something which is very close to us, that is happiness and time for a family and friends. Let me just take you back about 115 years ago and relate it to what's happening in our cities today. We look at number of special vehicles being formed to deliver the infrastructure projects in our cities. We are looking at number of trusts, bonds. So many alternates are presented to deliver infrastructure services in our cities. But think of a city in India about 115 years ago, established one of the first city-based improvement trust board. In 1903, Mysore was the first city to put a city improvement board. Many incarnations later, today we hear special vehicles to transform our cities, but here's a city which did it over 115 years ago. So there's already knowledge existing in the module, in the DNA of the cities in India. What do we do? How do we transform? That's the big change. And in doing so, I think the process is also very important. Leapfrog, by way of using technology, is a great virtue which we have got today in our world. We can utilize it and change people's life in a very short period of time. Within one generation, we can take out over 250 to 300 million people out of adjunct poverty. This is what today's day and age and technology provides us. But there is a larger issue. An issue is about how do we take something right from the process of access, having access to these people, providing access to these people right at the ground level, and connecting this access through presence, interaction, transaction, transformation, by way of putting a new paradigm shift if we are really serious about bringing open government, open data, most importantly the transparency for our citizens to get engaged. We are very fortunate to have Ms. Dr. Shalini Uz, who is the founder, chairperson of Myra School of Business, and her city of Mysore, was the one I was mentioning. Apart from the first City Improvement Trust Board, they are also very important because Mysore was the first place to have electricity, or organized or systematic electricity, and also one of the few cities to have total Wi-Fi in India. So over to you, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sunil, for setting the context for what I want to share here with all of you and the audience. Yes, I come from the city of Mysore, which we are very proud of because Mysore set, I would say, benchmarks, best practices for many aspects of city development. One of them being the establishment of City Improvement Trust Board, CITB, as it was known as, in the year 1903. So that was one of the first steps that was taken by then Maharaja of Mysore to develop the city of Mysore in a very structured manner. And in addition to that, Mysore also has the distinction of having established one of the first in Asia, a well-developed waterworks department called the Vanivilas Waterworks, which was established again in 1907. And this provided filtered water to the entire city of Mysore, utilizing the electricity, the first hydroelectric power system or power generation system established again near Mysore, drawing that electricity. Why I am mentioning all of these points is that is what a smart city in those days meant, where the government would provide the necessary services, the basic services, whether it is drinking water, electricity, or what have you, by establishing institutional frameworks, by establishing government frameworks for the benefit of the society, particularly the people. So I come from that city. So in other words, today when we talk about smart cities, apart from these, what is generally required or what is generally assumed to be required, which I believe in, is internet, the information technology that we talk about. Because when you say smart city or e-governance for that matter, what is the main difference between cities and smart cities, governance and e-governance? It is primarily the ICT technologies, information communication technologies, or the deployment of ICTs for governance, for the deployment of ICTs for city development or city improvement. So when you think of ICT, the first or the most important thing that comes to our mind and that is important is the internet. So in that sense also, Mysore city has the distinction of being the first city in India to be city-wide Wi-Fi. So Mysore Wi-Fi, Mysore Net was established in the year 2004. So coming to the topic or the theme of smart cities or e-governance for smart cities, I believe that the important thing is, these are the three key important things. One is the frameworks that you have or the government develops. What kind of particularly legislative frameworks that the government actually develops in order to provide services. And second is what kind of technologies, the cutting edge technologies that the government deploys or offers to the citizens. And third one is, the important thing is the engagement or the initiative that the government takes to engage the citizens. So these are the three things, in my view, for e-governance for smart cities. Now, if you take the first one I mean the frameworks or the legislative framework for a smart city or for e-governance, in my view, the important legislative framework is access to internet, access to technology. In fact, the whole of this Digital India, if you think of the Digital India initiative, one of the important facets or aspects of Digital India is access. Now, if you think of access to internet, the United Nations made access to internet or broadband access actually a right, human right, in the year 2004 itself under the World Summit, during the World Summit on Information Society. And India is not yet a signatory to that. So I feel that it is important that for India to make, because many countries of the world, Finland was the first one to make broadband access to every citizen a human right. So we need to make broadband access to citizens a human right. That would be the first step, our first legislative framework which would actually establish e-governance. Then, of course, we need to ensure, we have had all these discussions, 2-3 years back about free basics and, net neutrality, etc. It has to be ensured in addition to providing access to internet. Now, coming to the second point I mentioned is about the kind of technologies that we deploy, the kind of information and communication technologies that we deploy for the purpose of e-governance. Now, when it comes to technologies, digital technologies, well, today, technology, in my view, is not a major challenge. We see that one thing good that has happened in India is the transfer of technology is quite quick. Whatever technologies that you develop elsewhere in the world, it comes to India fast enough. The question is only that of penetration. In some respects, we have done well. When it comes to mobile, yes, we have done very well. But it is important to understand that we deploy the necessary tools and technologies for providing the access to internet, for providing access to the delivery of government services. So in the context of technology, it's important when it comes to e-governance that we deploy the necessary tools and techniques that are available for getting the necessary insights about the citizen engagement. I come from the field of information sciences, information retrieval, and text mining is one of the areas of my research work. And sentiment analysis is a tool that I have used in my research in order to understand the sentiment of the citizens when it comes to any crisis. So sentiment analysis is one tool that gives the government an tool to get an insight into the citizens' engagement, what they are feeling about any of the issues. In fact, just a couple of months back, we had some problems in Bangalore, and one of the ways we have analyzed the data is through this sentiment analysis. So I would say the important thing for any e-governance is to have the legislative framework, use the necessary tools and technologies for the engagement of citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. That is something I think cities and all levels of governments aspire to penetrate and have the connection to the people, most importantly, the most vulnerable people in our society. So it's very interesting to hear how the UN has actually put a mandate to have as a fundamental right of the broadband. So this is an excellent news, and I hope we do see some real evidence of that happening on the ground, and it's not limited to countries like Finland. One of the things we notice in very successful cities around the world is the value of people coming from outside and living in the city, analyzing the city, commenting and contributing in the city's day-to-day debate. We look at example of Singapore. The success of Singapore largely depended on people from outside and bringing a lot of successful idea. A very critique, but constructive critique. And cities throughout the world aspire. You look at any city's history and you'll see the contribution of people coming from overseas, other cultures, other regions, have something very profound to contribute in the success. That contribution becomes even more important when you have a strong research and evidence to back it up. Today, we have someone who has been living in Delhi for the last 3 years, participating in day-to-day activities of Delhi, but importantly, taking out how the cities in India can connect through a very strategic research works and understanding where are these gaps likely to happen when we are going to face a big challenge of applying digital technology to ensure that the new role of citizen engagement are really dependent on the strong systems of innovation and digitization. Because what is this happening when putting E in front of the governance? The availability to people at all levels of society must have an important relationship or playing a very important role of citizens in defining the future of their cities. So with that, we have Mateja Geder today with us, who is probably very interested in the life of Delhi and how these experiences are going to contribute towards other cities in India and globally. Over to you, Mateja.
Thank you. Thank you for this very interesting and inspiring introduction. So, coincidentally, my arrival to India coincided with Smart City Mission launch. It was 3 years back, 3 years ago, and I think it's a good time that we kind of critically review what has been happening in these 3 years' time in India. But as I am one of the biggest promoter of your country, because I think that India has made a tremendous step forward in terms of, especially in terms of online services available now to help us dealing with everyday life issues. I would just like to call your attention, or I would just like you to think with me, or to find the answer to the question, to the very basic question. Is actually technology, as we have it now, an enabler, or is it also a hindrance to citizen engagement? We all know that social media platforms, mobile applications have transformed citizen engagement. They have created new environments, yeah, and increased the number of participation. But Basically, technologies have not been able to solve the problem of exclusion. Technology-driven or technology-led citizen engagement is still limited to those who have access to hardware and software and who are skilled enough to use the technology. Another question is the effectiveness of online or e-engagement. A research, not mine, but of my colleagues have shown that only those citizens or individuals who are already intrinsically motivated to engage will participate in a meaningful way and will contribute a really qualitative contribution to discussion in an online scenario. So it's not about technology. Another thing is, and we have been witnessing this also in Delhi and in India, of course, that most of the solutions are still technology driven and they are not results of citizen real needs and wants. And as such, they basically result into lower level of participation. You all know that we are practically on daily basis, we are bombarded via email with different, with invitation to sign a different petition. Okay, what we receive is email form, and what we are supposed to do is just click on the agree button, or maybe we are required to write our email address in the form, and that's it. We don't even read the text that we are signing or that we are agreeing with. And research has shown that advanced technology or too much technology can lead to lower level or to passive engagement, which is actually the opposite that we want technology to improve. And instead of this, citizen engagement concept may turn into citizen touch point concept, which is not what we want. But yes, smart cities have changed the, or let me put it this way, citizen engagement in smart city goes beyond traditional concept of citizen engagement. Yeah? Because the role of citizen in smart cities is a bit different. We are not supposed to only engage when it comes to voting, when it comes to petition signing, but we are also invited to be engaged or to co-create a new technology. So that to make sure, so solution providers, I don't know, I've been invited several times to interact with different solution providers just to make sure that the technologies that they are developing would address real citizens' needs and wants. This is one thing. And since India is doing such a great thing in the field of solar power, you all know the examples that citizens in this new role are not only end users of services that service providers provide us, but they are also prosumers, especially in the field of in the area of solar power. Citizens are consumers, but with their roof solar lands, they are also producer of electricity, and if they are connected via smart metering, they are also distributed of the electricity, if we take this example. But I think that overall dialogue between citizens and cities' authorities would improve if citizens would be regarded more like customers. After all, we are all ultimate clients of a city because we use the services and we pay for the services that city enable us. So much for now.
Thank you very much, Mateja. I think we are very glad to hear you came at the outset of announcement of Smart City, and let's hope you stay to also look at some of the completion milestones and comment. Critical comment is very important for us. So I welcome some of the comments you made about how citizens can become a producer, consumer, and also distributors. A lot of services, basic services like electricity. And if you look at what's happening in some of the advanced economies, waste is going that way as well. That your household waste is going to play a very important role in future. But think of a scenario. I come from a country which hasn't got a lot of population. We are about 24 million people in the entire Australia, very small. But compare this to doing a simple thing like a passport. Is one of the most basic documents for you to travel, to have an identity throughout the world. And if you have to do a passport for less than even 10% of the population, not even 10, I would say even less than 5% of the population, to do and start a journey of having about 40 million people's passport may not sound something very critical or difficult, but it has got its own level of complexities. These complexities are very clearly not very well done by the governments throughout the world. And we have some very interesting examples. But private sector plays a very important role to put the investment, infrastructure, and system in that regard. In doing that, what is the most critical? It's not just the passport and other services. How do we ensure that these services would reach to the unreachable? The affluents, the people who's got all the resources in the world in our cities, would have access to the top services at any price point. But the responsibility of the government, especially in the democracy, is to reach the most vulnerable, the most unreachable people in our society. That task is difficult for two reasons. One, the resources. The governments are not going to have abundant resources to keep catering for these services, so they rely on external partnership. Number two, the transformation, reaching these things at a ground level is a very difficult task. And that's probably one of the most challenging tasks in Indian cities today. That how do you make the transformation at the ground level in cities? TCS, or Tata Consultancy Services, is anonymous for its work throughout the public sector. And we are fortunate to have someone who's been closely associated with reforms and implementation of urban policies with number of municipalities, local governments in India and abroad. Mr. KV Narayanan is here from TCS, and he's going to share some very interesting transformation examples. But most importantly, how do you reach the unreachable? That's the fundamental question to yourself.
Oh, thank you very much, Sunil. Firstly, good evening, all of you. How many of you have experienced the Passport Seva system in India? Do you know that we run the world's best ever passport service delivery? Visitors from world over have come and seen how we do the Passport Seva Kedras, how we do the service delivery, how we do the complete police verification in the electronic workflow, plus we deliver passport within a time frame of between 3 to 10 or 12 days. It varies from locations to locations. This has been a phenomenal transformation which has touched almost everybody in India. Next question is, how many of you file income tax returns in India? You must have seen the change and how easy it is to file. That's another great engagement we do. And there the model we are going in is to move away from a transactional filing to a single window or a one-stop shop for taxpayers to interact with the whole of the taxation department. What does it mean? It means not only to file, to know how much is your income which has been deducted at these things, plus receiving notices electronically, receiving communication electronically, and to be able to respond to all of it electronically. So by which you don't have to go to an income tax office at all. So in the last 3 to 4 years, the uptake has been so phenomenal, and we expect record volumes to come in as the days go by. And you know why? Because of demonetization. And once demonetization has been there are more people we expect to come into the tax flow. So we are literally running 2 of the very, very unique programs in India by which we are reaching out to citizens, we are reaching out to all the stakeholders, and then making sure that they get the best in class service delivery experience anywhere in India. We also do some of the more complex projects. For example, there is a huge social sector obligation in India. There are a lot of people who are below poverty lines. There is a scheme called National Rural Employee Guarantee Scheme, NREGA. And NREGA is a central administered fund which goes to the states. States can top up the fund and it is getting delivered. The ultimate beneficiary is a citizen who is a below poverty line citizen. But how do you make sure the citizen is identified and then he's verified, and at the point in which he is to receive, he is confirmed that he is indeed the person who is claiming to be. So in the state of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, we did the project original Andhra Pradesh, now we have split into 2 projects. We have established a complete integrated mechanism by which there is a centralized system, projects are defined, development projects are defined, funds are granted, funds are going down to each of the local areas, people will disburse funds, and the money goes into the bank account of the respective citizen, beneficiary. The beneficiary is registered using a biometric registration. Previously, there was enrollment camps done all over the state to enroll the people, but now it is Aadhaar-based enrollment. And how does the money disbursement happen? He takes he goes to a local village, and there is a handheld device, and he puts in his biometric, and he can get the cash from the local, what we call the inclusion agent. So that way, it is guaranteed that only the beneficiary will get the money, and he will get the money which is in his account, and the money would have been dispersed based on the project which is sanctioned, and the government at all times can track what is the usage and what is the project progress and so on and so forth. This is another wonderful example of what Sunil called reaching the unreachable. So now, what does a poor farmer in a village, how can he go? He just needs his fingerprints. As Honorable Prime Minister says, fingerprint lagao. So that's the model which is there. The other thing which we have done is again very unique in the state of Andhra Pradesh. It's a project called Arogyashri. See, what really happens is, today there are hospitals in India who are government hospitals and private hospitals. People who are below poverty line cannot afford private hospitals. They have to go to government hospitals. How does a government hospital deliver quality of service? How does he make sure that every genuine need of a patient is taken care of? So this project was conceptualized with the Andhra Pradesh before it was divided. And so every person has to get registered, and at every village and a panchayat and a district, there is a person called a Arogya Mitra. And Arogya Mitra is an authorized representative facilitator at a ground level who will make sure that a valid below BPL person is registered, his identity is verified, and then he's taken on, and there onwards he is into the system. So if he's got any problem, he goes to a primary clinic, and if he has to be recommended, then he's referred to the secondary clinic or a hospital, and his medical records go on to the central thing. If he needs a surgery, then he's given an appointment and with a major hospital, and it could be a private hospital also. And so that way you are making sure that the citizen can go to a local village or a local district and start his medical consultation process, and he can get the best of services within, across the state. Now, to administer that, how do you ensure that people are really giving the medication what is really required? We have established a BPO with doctors and pharmacists along with the government, who is going to vet every consultation and who is cross-checking that indeed whether if the doctor visits the patient, he is actually prescribing. So the prescriptions come online and the BPO is verifying those. So we are thinking holistically. So we are just not looking at the transactional part, and this has resulted in a very high degree of satisfaction to the BPL people. And Sunil, this is what is the concept of reaching to the unreachable. Let me take the third perspective. I'll just take a minute more. The third perspective is municipalities. Now we are doing transformation in about 3 major municipalities in India. One is Ahmedabad, and about across 50 odd municipalities in Orissa, and we also started a 155 municipality project in the state of Gujarat. Rather than just looking at a set of 10 services, in Ahmedabad we have taken the entire municipality. And this one covers not only the citizen services, birth, death, hospitals, transportation, then parks, community centers, reservation, plus also, most importantly, project engineering and also financial accounting. These are 2 aspects which are the weakest in municipalities, which are not administered well, and the government supported us to do that. So we have done the implementation of that, so that with the result, the end-to-end process within a municipality is online. Second is, we have delivered all services to the citizens on a mobile phone. Whether it is property tax, whether it is a booking of a Barat Ghar or a community center, whether it is knowing what is the AMTS, Ahmedabad, road transport, what is the bus frequency, how to pick a garbage, who is going to be there. So all things we have made available. How did we do that? We had an integrated system, and then we made sure we deliver it using technology on a mobile. Now we believe core services automation is a critical thing for making cities smart, especially for brownfield smart cities. Greenfield smart cities, we have a great opportunity to design from scratch, and we can literally do whatever we want to do. But in brownfields, we need to look at smart meters, smart parking, and everything, and they cannot work in isolation. So there has to be a smart city initiative which is IoT based, technology based, with services, but it has to be integrated with what we call a core citizen service delivery, thereby giving the real transformation to the people. So with that, I will close that point. Sunil.
Thank you, KVN. I think it's very interesting to hear how you took such a complex systems and simplified in a very succinct words by explaining that how TCS, in conjunction with the people and the governments, managed to reach the unreachable. So congratulations. What makes people thrive in our cities and work with the governments is the link. The link between government and its citizens is defined by the whole governance. But what's happening in a lot of urban areas and a lot of cities around the world, in all forms of politics, is the deficiency there is a real deficit of trust between governments and citizens. It is evidence-based through the changes in the governments, the questions, big questions about the political systems and the governance, not limited only to the developing world, but going much higher, much faster in the developed world. Not to name, but examples are quite evident, most importantly in the North American politics today. So that deficit of trust becomes very important for future of cities. And if that deficit is not fulfilled soon, then we begin to see the catastrophe happening in our cities primarily, and then reaching to the region and the national levels. What innovation and smart city do? They provide a facilitation part in connecting the citizens and the governments. You need a very strong backbone to do that. You need something where the contact with people becomes the primary system or primary basis of governance. Because if you don't reach people, if you don't reach ordinary day-to-day citizens, your governance would have big question marks, irrespective of written by the best experts of the world. But some examples are here which demonstrate clearly how you can take something simple as channel of complaints, where a lot of people, citizens, are very active in complaining, and utilize the same systems and the channels of complaints to convert them into channels of collaboration, which probably gives us a better model of cities, or at least the future of smart cities. How do you take something existing and transform it is very interesting to see works done by some of the e-government foundations in India, and they are everywhere now. Credit to people who are backing them up, funding them, and especially a lot of philanthropy work which is going into that. We have Kanta Mishra today with us, who is VP Marketing and Advocacy for eGovernment Foundation India, and I understand the basis or genesis of this started with Mr. Nandan Nilka and his UDIA work. So over to you, Shalini.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. So thank you so much, Mr. Dubey, for the very generous introduction. We started in 2003 as eGovernments Foundation, founders being Nandan Nilekani and Shrikant Nadmuni, people that are technology czars in India, not just from the individual and retail and consumer perspective, but also from the institutional perspective. And before we get into the details of citizen engagement, let me ask you, how many of you have a card, credit card? How many of you have ever missed a payment? Okay, don't tell me that. You don't want to tell me that. We all know that what happens when we miss a payment, right? You will get calls, you will be asked very gently, and then over a period of time, very nicely, and then you will pay. How many of us have the same experience in property tax? We don't even know when our property tax is due most of the time. No one reminds us. So how is it that the bank is smart? It's the same technology. Bank is smart and they are making their money, they're making sure their profitability is never compromised. And how is it the city is not smart? It's the same technology. Most of our municipal corporations are in red. They mostly run in deficit. And the reason is not because their means make them deficit. We have lots of resources. But the issue is that the right technology and right engagement is not in place in our cities to really run smartly. So imagine if I had a system which tells me that this is a property, it's in this area, this is the area of that particular property, it is 2-story, dimensions. Every 6 months, before you have to pay, you get a bill which just says that this is the amount, please pay. If you don't pay, there are consequences to it, right? I'll give you another example. Do you know that most of the people pay their water charges and most of the people do not pay their property charges? And it's the same set of people. The reason is that you will not have water connection, but no one can take your property away. So the reason I'm giving this example is this trust deficit is from both sides. Government is trying to do their best with the kind of resources they have. Citizens are trying to do their best, but the ability to connect on a platform that allows the right behavior from the government officials and the right behavior from the citizen is something which is a need of the hour today. So somewhere the interaction, the citizen energy and the government energy is adversarial. We do not want to interact with government. The government seems like they are not really fulfilling the service delivery needs that they are supposed to be doing for the citizen. So how do we really solve for it? And that's where we come into picture, and we think that technology with right solution design is the answer. In the personal life, I can book an Uber, in 5 minutes I get a taxi. Uber was launched in US. It took hardly any number of years for them to be global leaders. Why? Because they built a platform that could scale, they built a platform that could reach, and they built a platform that did not need too many customizations. Imagine if I had that kind of platform for running government services. Imagine a Facebook where each government service provider is actually a tenant, and we as citizens can interact with them. Not just demand service, but interact with them. Won't that be cool? The technology exists today. Facebook is a reality, Uber is a reality, Twitter is a reality. So what we think is that using the softer energy, which is the citizen energy, and using technology in providing a design solution that allows for every stakeholder to own the city and not just being consumers of the city services. So when the road is not good, my tendency would be to that this is someone else's problem and I will have 2 words for it. But when you give the city back in the hands of the stakeholder, give them the right channels of communication and interaction, and make government a part of the solution, that's where I think the real smartness of the city starts coming. And that's where smart city goes from being a product-defined smart to an interaction-defined smart. And I think that's what is the need for our. We are currently in 325 cities, we are evolving, but I think making that design work is something which will be one of the key challenges for us to be smart at the larger level. The second point I wanted to really discuss with you is the design of a solution. So currently, our design of a solution is based on aggregation of complaints. We have many apps, I'm sure many of you would have seen apps that allow you to complain about certain things. But what we don't do really, really well is design a solution for everyone. So the solution has to work for person who's going to provide you the service, they have the data to provide you the service, and for you to consume the service. Going back to my earlier example, why is it that 40–50% of property tax never get collected? It is not because of a lack of intent. It is because of a lack of systems. If we had right systems in place, it allows you to trigger automatically. 1 month prior, you can cut a billing cycle, send people reminder, you can send the right notification, you can combine water, property, electricity charges. Currently, all these 3 come separately. 3 different deliveries at your 3 different payments to make from a citizen perspective. So I think that's another big piece of how do we think of a design solution and not transaction level solution. As Kavian was talking about, I think Mateja also talked about, that citizen engagement is something which is also evolving. And as long as we have solutions which are very transaction based, the engagement will be very, very tepid, very lukewarm. You really want citizens to engage, then we have to make them part of the solutions. And that's what we are trying to arrive at, where we bring the government and the citizen, the developers, technology enthusiasts together to build and create solutions for India in the urban governance space. On the third point, which I'm sure, and I promise will be the last one, is really about Internet of Things, right? We heard this word about Internet of Things. How about Internet of Human Connections? How about giving decisions which are local body decisions to the local bodies? If Greater Kailash needs a park and it also needs a drainage system, who makes that decision? You guys must have heard about Bangalore, huge protest for Bangalore steel flyover. Who made that decision? Can we get citizens to engage and participate in the decision making itself? How do you connect people so that decisions are an outcome and not a first point of engagement? I think that's another point I wanted to leave everyone with. I don't have all the solutions, we don't have solutions. But really creating the platforms, really creating the channels of communication and interactions would be one starting point. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kanta. Thank you. I think that engagement piece is critical, irrespective of any form of city. We see smart city, innovative city, smarter cities. But there's another part which is an important discussion point today in our cities, the knowledge. Cities are producing so much of knowledge. And imagine if every policy you make in your city has to put on a paper, set in a file, print out, and archive in some stores. In a city like Delhi, if you have to follow the traditional path of filing every paper, putting it in these red files, you'll probably need an area of almost 4 square kilometer of only buildings and storage facilities to put your files only, nothing else. The investment to store these things are huge. And we cannot follow that path of shifting files, because what's going to happen with all this is a lot of knowledge and information is going to get lost. So we cannot follow this. What comes in this debate is the word digitization, knowledge, and paperless. How can we keep the intent of knowledge in our cities? How can we keep digitization as a form of facilitating this knowledge, but still creating a link with empowering people and citizens through this digitization? We have with us Mr. Bert Hendriks from Holland, from Netherlands, from Amsterdam, as I proudly say, where they have demonstrated within the local governments that digitization can make paperless value proposition for the citizens, and it empowers, in fact, citizens by having access to knowledge without going through layers and layers of bureaucracy. So simple process of digitization and paperless becomes a tool for peoples and citizens. So Bert, over to you, and give us some good examples how you managed to do this when paperless office seems to be a great dream, both in public and private sector organization. Bert Hendriks.
Well, thank you very much, Sunil, for this introduction. I really feel at home with my orange tie. Maybe most of you know that orange is also the color of Holland. So I'm very happy to see that the interaction between Holland and India is like this. Yes, Sunil, you are totally right. We, within the company, believe that it's all about people. You have to put people in the lead. But the way to do that is also to empower them. And how can you put people in the lead, and how can you really empower them if they don't have the same kind of information as you have within the government, within your organization? So working digital is then the solution to do it. And basically, I don't believe in the word document anymore. A document is only a piece of paper with information on it. And the information and the content of this document, that's what is important. tomorrow I will fly back to the Netherlands and I booked my ticket with KLM. It was a transaction and everything was digital. There's no paper at all. I can use my phone, go there, and the whole transaction is done. But there was a lot of information transacted in between. So if you want to put people in the lead, you have to work digital. And also ask to people what they really want. How do they want to be empowered? So if you want to engage your citizens, it's very simple basically. Just ask them. Normally we don't do that. We say, okay, we have technology, we can ask people online. And for example, in the Netherlands we provide a kind of citizen lab where citizens can provide information. They can vote about building something or not. But what is very important, also do it online, but do it offline. Just go out there. And why is that possible to go out there and meet the citizens as a municipality, for example? It's possible because you work digital and you have your processes efficiently. You can better spend time, as we say, for example, for social security, you can better spend time at the kitchen table of your citizens than spending time in your whole process. So there's a need for really agile and lean processes and digital processes. We believe so far, I can tell that story, but I believe in storytelling, but I believe even more in story doing. Within Decos, we are fully paperless. Who can say that he or she is fully paperless within his organization? I see two hands. Yeah, my colleagues are sitting there, so they can say it all. Well, compliments to you. Also fully digital, no paper in your office. No paper in your office. No paper? Sorry? All digital. My compliments, my compliments. It can be done. The only thing was that when people came to our office, they said, yeah, Bert, but I went to the toilet and there was still toilet paper. And I don't want that anymore, so what we have done, all the toilets, we replaced them for paperless toilets. So now we are really fully paperless. In the Netherlands, we are helping to realize the digital dream of municipalities. Good examples are, for example, the municipality of Leiden and maybe better known, the municipality of Amsterdam. Are they there yet? Are they fully digital? No, they are not there yet. But we're getting close. And I think it's the only way to reach your goal is to work fully digital. What's very important that we deliver a platform for that to do that. And also we promise something. When we come to a municipality, for example, or other organization, we say we digitize one process per day for you. One full process, fully digital. That's possible, and it should be possible because you have to work agile, you have to work lean. And so many things change in governmental organizations so fast. So that's the only way how you can do it. So if processes change, it should take you maximum of 1 day or so, change the system, and then the new process can go live. What we believe in, we have so 130 cities as clients in the Netherlands, so we really believe in paperless. And also we believe that be the change that you want to be in your organization. Be that change, act, it is really possible. Other example, for example, what we said, electrical cars, all new cars that we buy for a company or lease for a company will be fully electrical. And of course, it's also for the environment, but that's not the core reason why we do it. The core reason why we do it is that we want that organizations innovate. We want the car manufacturers to innovate. And we want that more green energy is there. So be the change that you want to be in your organization. Try to work fully paperless. For this group it was a bit strange because we all handed over the visit cards. I didn't do that because I cannot take paper. I make a picture of it and I directly linked via LinkedIn. So also that problem can be solved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bert. Thank you. So these are some of the very successful examples today in front of us that how we can transform a simple issue like saving the trees by utilizing the digitization. And imagine in a country like India, you have more than 600 urban local bodies. And even if you can save 50% of your papers around these urban local bodies, that will be enormous amount of savings for the plants and trees. Looks simple, but when you put it in perspective, it has very profound effects on the entire globe, not only in India, but the entire place. What we see in governance is we often talk about governance, e-governance a lot. But when we test this, the most important governance where we associate as a citizen on a day-to-day basis is the local governance. As a people in the cities, very seldom you'll find yourself interacting to affect the governance at the regional or the national level. We may think we are making a huge political contribution to make, but we have a very minimum impact on the top level governance, that's the national governance, because the politics plays much bigger role. But where we connect is the urban local governance on a day-to-day basis. In order to test the governance and its impact in our cities, the impact has to happen at the urban local governance, and that impact would only happen if we have a strong connection and engagement. In doing so, governance is not limited to only the political arena today. It spans from technology, from science, from economy, from social patterns, which means that we need social scientists. We have aeronautics people who are working on how the cities would behave, and it needs a very complex skill sets. Today, we also have a lot of people getting involved with the planning of our cities. Urban planning, urban governance is not limited to one or two disciplines of education or skill set or knowledge. We have someone who has worked throughout the spectrum of these areas, starting from aviation, avionics, all the way up to technology management, and contributed at all levels to ensure the impact is felt at the urban level, that is the urban local governance, where we see the result. In doing so, the ground level digitization is a very complex in India for a number of factors. So let's not underestimate that it is something we can roll out and do it. And we heard from TCS's experiences that how KV described that these simple systems can be rolled out, but they need a lot of vision, political willingness, and most importantly, engagement. I now invite Mr. Sushovon Saha, who is done enormous work in e-governance, and he's currently advising number of municipalities on the rollout of the smart cities and digitization of their administrative system. So, Mr. Saha, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for your kind and generous word about me. And it's indeed a matter of privilege to be with this august gathering as well as dignitaries on the dais. We must have seen one thing, a paradigm shift about how our country is being looked at by every part of the globe. At one point of time, we were, the country of street magician, country of snake charmers. Then, we moved down to, country of mouse charmers or IT wizards. Now, I think, our country actually is known for many various good reasons. It is actually moving from land of hope to land of opportunity. Why I call this, there is a very, strong reason behind this. This is one country, land of billions, 7th in terms of area. And if I look into, the words called land of opportunity, can we ever imagine, it doesn't take much money or revenue if, let's say, every citizen of this country contributes just 1 rupee to my bank account. You know it. I can beat Ambani, and I'll be the richest man possibly on the planet. And possibly that's why most of the foreign contributors, people, and some of my friends from IIMs and my engineering college who had green cards actually have moved down to my own country. It's indeed a matter of privilege and pride to tell you that we have world's largest identification repository called Aadhaar. And trust me, another 150 years, I think no country can beat this record. Or maybe even 400 years. The reason being, country is so enormous, so huge, we have got, we can take almost 28 or 29 countries into our, population, into our, area in terms of, that is the complexity. When we talk, we argue, okay, fine, where we have reached, what we have done. Then, when Aadhaar was being rolled out, there were a lot of issues, privacy issues. There, still today, I can answer a lot of privacy issues. There is actually practically, it's one of the most foolproof and secure system on earth. Practically, no intrusion is possible. And then when we're talking about, we have literally leapfrogged in the terms of technology, we have gone into something called India Stack. And I'll tell you one of the example. When we have built upon such a wonderful, setup, we thought about, how to use it. And, identification was one of them. Passport, actually, if you think 7 days or 9 days, it is in your hand. First passport which I got was, 16 days going to Lucknow and, traveling and, then moving from pillar to post. And now you don't need, you just put it online and, you are treated as a VIP, it just snaps and few, authentication and it's done. So that's the, miracle of technology. That's, where we have leapfrogged. And now when we're talking about, our India Stack, one of the component called eKYC, one of the biggest gainer of this particular technology is Ambani. Reliance Jio is one of the example. I guess if you would have taken this much of, client base, I'm very sure 3-4 states, entire forest would have been, cut down. All the papers would have converted to make those, KYC statements. And, today we're talking about the heat called 48 degree. It would have reached God knows where. So that's one part. Due to paucity of time, there are a lot of interesting facts which I wanted to share, but let me take you to quick thoughts about the topics which are there, minimum government and maximum governance. A lot of work has been done by Digital India. I do not know if we are aware of, there is something called mygov@nic.in and indiagov.in, wherein there is a great amount of citizen participations, wherein we can actually participate, we can, whatever we are discussing, we can directly, I'll give you a classic example. It's not about, we cannot say, okay, fine, this there. I'll give you an example. How many times, media has been, I'm sorry to say, has been very negative about our country, about, where we stand, what is the development. They will show you, people from the street. They will show you about, there is no Grand Bazaar house kind of thing. And trust me, one of the glorious example, which is not thought of and, marvelous, in terms of innovative component, oh yes. Let me quote this example, and this has been, suggested by one of my classmate, engineering classmate, who is based out of Pune. He told that there are a lot of, train coaches which are actually defunct because of, brake problems, because of something. Why can't we use them as Grand Bazaar? And it's been taken and, is being used. So one of the fabulous uses of, who do not have roof. Then when we talk about, there is one person whom I know of, I'm very close to, something called healthcare industry, the medical fraternity especially. Today everyone is scared of doctors. Why? Oh, you'll get injection, you'll get something, hurt or something like that. There's something called Dr. Miskin Ingavle. Our country doesn't have much of, mortality rate because of cancer, because of, other diseases. It is because of, very simple problem called anemia. That is, wherein in the rural part, you do not know how much, component of your iron is there in the pregnant ladies. So he has devised with something which is called non-invasive component. You do not have to prick, a needle. So, even rural, they do not need to be kind of scared of. And earlier it used to take, let's say, 300 rupees for the test. Now it costs only 13 rupees, 1-3. So that is, the kind of innovation component of it. And there are plenty of those kind of innovation component which we can talk. Now I'll just, can I have 2-3 more minutes?
Just 1 more minute.
1 more minute, okay. So I'll just talk about, urban local governance. Have the reforms been effective? 74th Amendment, it has actually, given provision for 3 things. Mahanagar Nigam, that is, population of, 10 lakh population and above. Then we have got, under section 243U, then we have got, Nagar Palika municipality, which is having, 1 lakh and 10 lakh populations, and Nagar Panchayat. These are the 3 basic components. They have been given with 18 responsibilities. But most of the plum components has been taken away by the states. For example, Delhi Jal Board or any other Jal Board or something like, development authorities. They are left with nothing but, garbage collections. Left with what? Birth and death registration. And I don't know. Then we have the answer. Have the reforms been effective? Gandhi's dream of giving complete Swarajya to the common man, to the grassroots level, I don't know whether that dream actually, after so many years of independence, has actually, come up. I do not know about that. I guess, our august audience can have this answer. Thank you so much. It's really been wonderful with each one of you. Thank you so much. Once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saha. Thank you. I think it's good to see the level of passion you have got in the work you do. And I'm quite sure the governors would play a very important role. If it's not complete Swaraj, I think we're beginning to see at least Swaraj is beginning to happen with more empowerment to the people. So congratulations on all your work. Every theory, every policy has its own outcomes. And no policy or no theory can be seen as completed unless it's tested by the people. So now it is your turn. You heard all the way from Dubey's story, what's happening in Indian cities, great examples by way of what Mysore is doing and how the transformation is happening through research with people in Delhi, conducting through different cross-disciplines and areas, and then coming to simple thing by engagement of e-governance through implementing a backbone system. And what's the role private sector like TCS is playing in enforcing and making governance strong. Because the e-component would only be strong if that theory is tested with the reality and people are beginning to engage and participate in future of the cities. With those notes, I would like to invite you to come forward and ask questions irrespective of how critical these questions are. Please put it forth to us, to the panel here. And I would like to request you to please say your name and ask the question, and we'll pool the questions together and I'll request appropriate person from the panel to respond. So please introduce yourself, who you are with your name and
Hello.
city, please.
Hello, I'm Ram Gopal from Chemtrals. I have a question for my TCS friend. The basic point is, if we have, when a child, today the birth is linked up, birth certificate is all digitalized. So if as soon as the child is born and it is linked up and an insurance of 1 rupee a year is made, it will be the best thing for the whole country, because we have to be proactive right from the child that is born. If it is given a treatment over the period of time, then you will have a proper, you don't have to go for money or anything. And the second point is, the government hospitals also have to raise to that level of a private hospital. It is not that the private hospitals are good today, but the government hospitals should also raise to that level, and private hospitals also have to raise to a good level. That's the main point which we should consider while taking into the citizens, the children and the old people into consideration.
Any other questions? Okay. We have one more hand. We have one hand in the front. So I'll let you go, sir, please.
Yeah, I am Vivek Agarwal. I work in energy efficiency and smart city sector, and I am from Delhi. As we are growing more into more urban world, and also we are adopting more smarter ways of living. But maybe I am wrong, but my perception is that we are also going on a very downsize in terms of the traffic sense. So are we building up any solutions in terms of how we can have a more advanced versions of traffic sense? Because if you take the example of Delhi, we can have the 3-lane system, 4-lane system, we have multiple flyovers. But if you talk about the 3-lane, automatically it becomes 5-lane or 6-lane. Also, we don't have any lane in terms of emergency transport system. For example, ambulance, or for example, any accident occurs. So do we have any solution, or we are moving towards any solution, or we are thinking of any solution in that terms?
Yeah, hi. My name is Parth Pathak. I'm a fintech entrepreneur who just came back to my motherland in India. My question is more in terms of the smart city mission itself. We see in the smart city mission, a lot of hundreds of billions of dollars has been allocated to the existing cities who are already being populated by millions of people, and they're already very restricted, in my view, in the changes in infrastructure that can be done. They're very needed, of course, because millions of our citizens live there, but I also want to ask, where is the focus on creating brand new cities to accommodate the next 100, the next 200, next 300 million people who are going to be urbanized, and building from a really scratch 2017 model to optimize that?
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Rekha from Kasturba Hospital, Municipal Corporation. A couple of years back, Government of India had introduced system of MCTS, Mother and Child Tracking System, in few states to start with. That was to track the pregnant mother and child. So what is the idea of increasing the ambit of this system to include the whole population, and how to help the healthcare system in our country by that?
Hello, I am Dr. Monisha Bhagat from Dr. RML Hospital. I work in the Department of Medicine. My question is there a need for a health card which is not similar to Aadhaar card, which include the components such as your name, age, and date of birth, place of birth, blood group, any chronic ailments, and also height, weight, the body mass index, etc., etc., and how the government can implement it?
Thank you. Look, let's go through. I have 5 questions now. So if it's okay with everyone, I'll allocate from the panel for those 5 questions. If time allows us, we'll go to the next set of questions. I may start with something very critical about the health, because often with the smart city, the health get pretty much the back seat, which is a very important part of the smart cities and doesn't get addressed. And in saying that, I think 2 specific questions, I would like to put both. This question has got an integration part and a lot of data. I would like if KVN, if you can respond, what happens about health card and systems like MCS in bringing into the mainstream? Thank you.
Okay. So I think both at a state level and a center level, there are various health initiatives. But I think they have not reached a stage of maturity and what we call universal adoption. So where are we, and then what are the initiatives going on? So we have implemented total health care, HMS and HMIS in 2 states, in the state of Tamil Nadu and in the state of Gujarat. In both these states, the primary, secondary and tertiary hospitals are complete hospital management and healthcare management is online. Now, so with the result that what you talked about, a patient record, it comes automatically. So a patient, once he's get onto the system, his records will get moved digitally from one entity to another entity. So that way it is fully taken. It also knows what treatment he or she is taking and what are the interventions which are required, and full tracking is there. Second is that can we have a mother and child tracking system? I think this is much more universal. It is not a, so I think there is a initiative underway. Now, can it not be linked to a Aadhaar card? See, what is the identity? Ultimately, India has been missing an identity, universal identity which Aadhaar is giving. While there will be issues of privacy, but the fact that a person has got an Aadhaar, why can't we build a whole system of, I would call, benefits or social benefits around Aadhaar, and not being intrusive, and not be, so that is a model which can be done, and government can take that. I think the other question which the other gentleman asked is, why can't we start supporting right from when the day the child is born? Now, see, this is what we call a life cycle model. Now, the fact that a birth has been registered, once it goes to the system, and what I talked about is, can we not prompt, can we not suggest that, look, this is your immunization, this is your hospital visits. See, once the data is on the system, you can drop. You can send reminders that, as you said, and alerts, and then maybe home visits. A healthcare worker can visit a home. And the great thing in India is, these systems are there, but they are not digitized. We just have to, the entities are there, the people are there, funding is there, we just have to digitize them and link the people with the digitization. So these are some points I want to put.
Thank you very much, KVN, for that perspective. And just going back to a question of, I'll merge the 2 questions from Vivek and also about the question of new smart cities, because they have connection between the two. And I may ask, because you are doing enormous work in terms of how the new cities, or how we can utilize the governance to build new cities, and also what kind of role the contents would play, for example, the traffic and stuff. So if I may ask both of you to put your perspective, new cities, and how we can improve even simple things like movement of emergency vehicles. So over to both of you to put your perspective.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your question. Basically, I don't have answer to your question, but I think that would be a perfect example where city authorities could organize a workshop and ask citizens how to tackle the problem. So how you would want that traffic is organized, that 3 lanes remain 3 lanes, not that, 1 lane is occupied by food vendors, like we've been reading about this since the opening of the new layer in Gurgaon, yeah. So I think this would be a perfect example. So you have to have a say in order to resolve the matter the way you would like to be resolved. This is my question. I'm not giving you the answer, but I think this is a challenge for city authorities to invite you, other stakeholders, like city planners, like investors, like local businessmen, like solution providers, and you together find the solution. And this is what I would call a perfect example of citizen engagement.
Thank you so much, Mateja, and thank you for the question, because I think it's very easy to have superficial changes, but the questions both of you asked are very, very fundamental. Fundamental questions require two things. One is an institutionalized way of decision making, and second is participation. And I think that's what Mateja here described about participation. The reason we do not have an institutionalized way of decision making is, just give me a second. Sir, that bag belongs to me. That was not part of the answer. I'm sorry. See, this is what happens. Misinformation. I know. No, I'm just making a point. Sorry about that. I just did not want to lose my bag and my boarding pass. Okay, so that was a good example. So for example, have I extrapolated the rate at which population of Bangalore will grow? Have I extrapolated the rate at which the real estate requirements will change? I live in an area in Bangalore which is, okay. I live in an area of Bangalore which is an SEZ. The design of SEZ, right? Does it make sense that we have 10,000 employees working in an SEZ and don't have residential plots allotted close by? Does it make sense that you have only high-end residential settlements in a particular area and not have all classes? Did we do that in the town planning area or not? I think that lack of information and data allows these problems to get more complex than they are. They are already complex problems. So I know that Uber has made all their traffic data open data. One can use that open data today to plan routes for DTC. They can plan routes for what the feeder buses are required from metro stations, what timing those buses are required. So both actions are required to be taken. How do I make data-driven decision and policy making as ingrained into making decisions, rather than making decisions and then validating them? And second is, as Mateja pointed out, really engaging the people whose life it's going to impact, because they really know what really bothers them, rather than making assumptions around it. So how do you solve this institutionally is the core area. And as she said, we don't have answers, but these are the core crux that we as a society, we as citizenry will have to work with government to influence and make a reality.
Thank you, Kanta. Just one quick minute and then I'll summarize it. You have 30 seconds.
Okay, great. Actually, it's really unfortunate that, what is this? Blackout? Hello? Yeah. Okay. Now, what is happening, it's really sorry, I was just pointing up to the media, we have a solution. When you are asking about, Indore is the first city to have implemented intelligent traffic monitoring solution. And such a great solution it is implemented by video analytics. What you are asking, that, road safety, challans, it's so automated, the technology is Indian. This is by a gentleman who is nonetheless like a hero of Three Idiots. He's having 150 patents, Indian, who was settled in the US, now is currently based out of India. The sole solution is, you cross the signal, you violate it. At that point of time, that clips, that frame is there. And at the same point of time, you have your number plate, you have that driver's pick, and you have that evidence, this thing, and challan. And it reaches your home, it reaches your mail ID, it reaches your, this thing, and you have to pay for it. And for this, what is happening, whatever, money that has been invested by Indore government, transport department, it has been, twice or more than 2.3 times recovered within 3 months. And the day is not that far. When we're talking about the same, it is going to be implemented pan-India, and trust me, we will not be having any of this kind of problem, and this is going to set up another, glorifying example of our country. Thanks.
Wonderful. That's a great example of how revenue can be increased by using simple technologies. To close the session, firstly, I want to thank all of you, all the panels. Here's the speakers, our keynote speaker who's gone, he had to catch a flight, 2 of us. But most importantly, two things I want to close this session with. One, I take the quote from yesterday's comments from Professor Jagan Shah of NIUA, is the cost of inaction in India is going to be very important. Not doing, not refining governance is a huge expense. It's the largest investment. We have to be careful. The cost of inaction. Number two, I want to quote something from Jakub's very important book about cities, the rise, the death of American cities. And the quote is, stop building, start managing. In India, we also have to look at what do we do with existing cities and how do we remodel rather than continuously focusing on building new. So we need to go and start looking at existing cities to manage better rather than building new and new. And that could be a very interesting example for all of us in testing the e-governance and success of smart cities. Thank you very much, and I hand it over to the people.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Dubey, for conducting the session so beautifully. But before we close finally, we would like you to give mementos to our esteemed speakers. May I request you, the first keynote speaker, Mr. Jakub? Oh, he's gone? Okay, sorry. Then Shalini has gone also, and Mateja. Mr. K.V. Narayanan, he is from TCS. Mr. Sushovon Saha. Ms. Kanta Mishra. I'm sorry for missing you out in the beginning. Mr. Bert Hendriks. And now may I request Mr. Sunil from Exhibitions India to present a memento to our esteemed chairperson, Mr. Sunil Dubey, who is Senior Advisor, Metropolis, Australia. Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful job done, including speakers. They were really good. Thank you so much.